Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 online gameplay. This time around it is going to be a bit of Brettonia against High Elves on the map Glacial Lake, and this was a bit of a friendly match against a friend of mine, Triari. We recently got together, played a bunch of games, and this was a bit of an interesting one because Brettonians versus High Elves usually kind of skewed a bit in the Brettonians' favor, though here we are experimenting with a few things. So we'll definitely see how things break down. Before I hop into this game, I do want to apologize for how sketchy the upload schedule has been lately. Simply been busy with a lot of real life stuff, work, preparing for LSATs and that sort of thing, and just haven't really had the time to game, much less really upload videos or record videos that much. So I apologize. It might still be a bit sketch for a few days or maybe a few weeks upcoming. I will do my best, but just so you guys know. Regardless, hopping straight into this match. For my Lord, I'm rolling with the Fey Enchantress. Not much to be said for her. I do think she's obviously very strong in this matchup. She can help you drain away the life of enemy units, such as a Phoenix Guard, which is very important for Brettonia, since fighting them in an honest fight is otherwise pretty suicidal. Of course, she does have Regrowth Earthblood. It's a great ability here with Favor of the Fey, a really good support spell. Chalice of Potions, and Arcane Conduit. So she's got a whole bunch of good abilities, definitely very good as a support lord, and pretty tanky against at least some types of sniping, because she does have a built-in physical resist, missile resist, and some pretty significant magic resist at 60%. Alongside her, well, the front line is dirt cheap as always. It's simply a horde of men-at-arms and shields, not much to be said for those guys, backed by some peasant mob because we had spare points. There are 3 peasant bows with fire arrows in the back line, ready to provide fire support, especially against high elf archers. You'll find that these guys are very good. They can actually kill, they actually have a take an entire shot less to kill Sisters of Avalorn than normal peasant bows, so that's worth noting. So they're very good to provide fire support against high elf troops. Behind that, we do have 2 units of field trebuchets, both chevron up to the veteran C rank 5. This will make them much more accurate, and once again, much better, hopefully, at wrecking Phoenix Guard, which Triari has brought 2 units of here, so hopefully these guys will get some value there. Besides that, we do have 4 units of cavalry. I didn't want to go with a full-on Grail mob. Now, one of the strategies I'm very fond of if you want to go full tryhard is bring Grail Guardians and stacking and bring 4 units of Grail Knights. Now, this is not necessarily tournament legal. If you want to go tournament legal, Knights of Lionheart are the way to go, but yeah, basically, throwing in Grail Guardians can be a huge difference maker here. So we're going to be trying to do it without, and we got some Trebuchets instead to break up that infantry. On the flanks, though, 3 Grail Knights, as well as the single unit Knights of the Lionheart here, providing some support. Now, Triari's build is definitely very narrow, very elite, and very melee-centric. There's actually no range units whatsoever. Alariel is up on her Sky Pigeon. She does have magic attacks, which is actually going to be bad against the Fey Enchantress, who forces resistance. She's coming in with Earthblood as well as Shield of Thorns. She has Arcane Conduit, Star of Avalorn, which is still a bit busted, definitely pretty powerful healing ability. She also has Boon of Isha, providing immunity to psychological damage. Shield of Safri, as well as a Life Bloom. Interestingly enough, no physical resist spell, though this does make sense against Brettonia, just because Brettonia has so much magic damage, and the most potent sources of Brettonian damage will be magic sources. Boon of Isha, though, does kind of backfire if you're trying to snipe out the Fey Enchantress, because it does grant everybody magic damage, making them less effective against her. Now, for his front line, Triari has brought 3 units of Spearmen. These guys are trash. They're not going to be able to fight through the men-at-arms even. But, well, I say trash. They're good for a chaff unit, but they're not going to be able to fight through the men-at-arms. But they will help disrupt charges for the White Lines of Krace, who can dumpster men-at-arms. And, of course, the Phoenix Guard. They can also soak some shots for them. And the Phoenix Guard will dumpster basically everything here in sustained combat. There's also a Frost Pigeon, a Frost or Phoenix up in the sky, as well as a Star Dragon, both of which are very potent in this matchup. Star Dragon and Silver Realm builds one of the few builds that can really do pretty damn well against Bretts. So seeing Triari over here, I didn't want to get... So one of the things with Glacial Lake is that you've got this huge pit here. Now I could have tried to maneuver around it with my cavalry, but I didn't want to get caught out by an unfortunate aerial goon squad. So I decided to come back in here and provide support for the field trebuchet, since I was a little worried that Triari would dive right in and try to shut him down instantly. In the meantime, my archers here are starting to pester these Keepers of Flame, and you can see the trebuchets getting a few hits in here and there. And keep in mind, because the trebuchets are killing models, that's not stuff he's going to be able to heal. He's not going to be able to get his HP back. He's not going to be able to recover that. Now, the Peasant Bows of Fire don't really have great targets, so they're just focusing the Keepers of Flame. Not much can be said for that. It's not an ideal target for them, though. It is worth mentioning that fire arrows will actually do more damage than normal arrows, even against units with 100 armor, despite having lower AP. Unfortunately, though, the front line here completely buckles, so we don't have a Grail Relic, and with the support of the Frost Pigeon, with the support of the Star Dragon, all these men-at-arms are suddenly buckling, and that's quite the disaster. So we are going to be able to force to line up our cavalry here and countercharge, and this is definitely a bit of a rough one. So one of the big problems here is that we weren't able to really hammer an anvil. I did kind of pull my cavalry back, and part of the problem was also that having this bit of this hole in the ice here does prevent me from getting good flanks here, and because of that, we're not able to get a good surround, which is generally one of the big advantages for Brettonia in this match. You kind of swarm from all sides. That said, the Frostheart Pigeon here getting caught out by Grail Knights, and he is going to have a pretty miserable time of it. Despite the 80 armor, he just isn't going to hold up that well. 48 melee defense is great and all, but Grail Knights just hit so hard. They got Favor of the Fae, putting up to 73, plus that bonus for large, I believe 18. So this poor Frost Pigeon is getting destroyed. Maybe it's not 18, maybe it's like 12. Probably lying. It's actually just 12. I'm a liar. But either way, in the front line, the Grail Knights demolishing the white lines of Krace, despite Shield of Thorns going down. Of course, the physical is basically useless against them. And with the Fae, as well as this mob of Grail Knights, we are sort of bouncing around and able to sort of control and contain this big flying threat squad. The problem is that our front line is gone at this point, and we are going to see a Star of Avalorn go down. Obviously, very, very potent spell, as we mentioned before. Probably still a bit overtuned, but it is going to give these guys some monstrous heals. That said, the Frostheart Pigeon is getting pretty demolished. You can see the continuous hail of fire from the trebuchets doing some major work, doing a lot of damage, but unfortunately, we've already lost the unit of Grail Knights. They've already essentially been removed from play. The Frost Pigeon here is routing, but it is going to be able to extricate itself, and we now have lost another unit of Grail Knights, so things are suddenly looking a lot grimmer. Now, the Fey Enchantress here in the fight is going to be perpetually draining the HP from these Keepers of the Flame, very effective, and unfortunately, Drari is not able to shut down my archers, so the archers are largely still online. Some of them are finally getting shut down here, but we are going to commit our reserves here. The Knights of the Lionheart diving in against the Star Dragon, and that continuous fire from the Peasant Bows is just whittling this guy down. Star Dragons, they're tanky, but ultimately only 80 armor, and if they're getting surrounded like this, they're of course getting hit from the rear, and the Knights of the Lionheart are just pursuing them to the bitter end, making sure that this dragon does not come back, and we actually shatter him. So this is a huge win for us. Balance of power shifting pretty decisively in my favor, which is really, really nice, and you can see the Fey Enchantress is now in the perfect spot. So suddenly, right now, the win conditions for us are basically met. Now, sure, we've got troops routing, of course, Peasant Bows in a bad spot. Problem is that a lot of our remaining troops are shooting. So right now, if Shari is able to get on all his backline troops, he's going to be able to shut them down, and things are going to look pretty grim. That said, Lady Alarielle is just kind of sitting here doing not very much. The Grail Knights here are able to sort of swing away, dive in on these white lines, and the Fey Enchantress, like I said before, she does have that meaty 60% fire or magic resist, so she is able to tank through things here. But unfortunately, she gets terror routed here, and this is going to be a bit of a disaster. So before she was draining all these troops, things were looking grand, looking really good. Problem is, Fey Enchantress routes here, and it's not just a terror route; it's a full-on route. And suddenly things are looking very, very bad. Now, the Phoenix Guard is getting onto my backline because I wasn't paying attention, so it's getting on top of that trebuchet. Over here, the Fey Enchantress routes, and because it's such a small map, plus because I have nothing in the air, Alarielle's able to get on top of her, and right now I'm going to lose my lord. So this is going to be absolutely disastrous. It means these peasants are going to have a very hard time sticking around. And I realize that I've got no way of keeping the Fey Enchantress in the fight. She's gone. There's no saving her. Fortunately, I almost get her back because Alarielle lands in a bad spot and almost zones her back towards me, but nope, we don't get that lucky. You can see the trebuchets there pounding these spears, forcing them off. And we actually remove the Keepers of the Flame here as well. But unfortunately, our trebuchets here being overwhelmed, and we are trying to collapse on these Phoenix Guards to get them out of play. But as soon as the Fae is going to be gone, you're going to see the balance of power actually doesn't shift immediately, but it is going to start shifting pretty decisively back in Triari's favor. Keep in mind, there's fear, there's terror on the field. We Lord fled recently, that's minus 16 leadership, and that's going to start being disastrous for our cheap trash. And it also means I have no more healing. So right now, the Knights of the Lionheart, the Grail Knights, all these units could be absolutely clutch because they're going to get no heals. They're going to be very, very sort of hard-pressed to get good value. And Alarielle's still on the field. She's still healing. So definitely some brutal stuff here. You can see these Grail Knights actually rout. So that's a bit ridiculous, but they routed trying to chase the Keepers of the Flame off the field. The Frost Pigeon is going to dive in here, trying to get in on the field trebuchet, but then does shift over, and he's trying to remove all of these archer or shooting units off the field because, of course, they're still a big threat. And right now, the Phoenix Guard is kind of the anchor. Phoenix Guard can carry the day, or if anything can carry the day, it's going to be the Phoenix Guard because ultimately the Alarielle and the Frost Pigeon are not good enough to deal with, say, the Knights of the Ironheart. That said, another Star of Avalorn here does go down, and I see it coming, so I actually run away because the Frost Pigeon, in order to attack these guys, is actually going to fly out of this area of effect, and that means that these Knights of the Lionhearted now don't have to deal with healing. And so we're able to get a nice little surround here, nice meaty bit of damage on this Frostheart Phoenix. Of course, his physical resist buff he gets is doing nothing for him. And we actually remove him, shattering him from play. Elsewhere, Alarielle the Radiant here getting surrounded, but unfortunately the Grail Knights just getting torn to shreds. There's very little of them left. They are doing a lot of damage to her, of course, but she does do magic damage in return, which means she's punching through that physical resist. One of the really nifty things right now, and one of the things that could have been disastrous otherwise, Knights of the Lionheart providing Courage Aura, so they're actually keeping this entire pocket of troops probably in the fight right now, where everything else would rout. But I am forced to flee because I just can't sit here and trade shots with the Phoenix Guard. To make matters worse, we do have white lines rallying on the periphery, and they are coming back with a vengeance, and this is really not something I can afford right now. I need these guys away. I can't afford to have white lines interrupting this fight, and you can see the swordsmen here in pretty good shape, actually fleeing from the field. Over here, the men-at-arms are intercepting these white lines. The white line's very low on HP. My cavalry trying to rally in the distance here, and unfortunately, Keepers of the Flame actually came back. So this was not what I wanted to see. This is definitely not what I was looking for. So we're actually going to pull away here with our cavalry, looking to regroup and get a bit of an engage. These peasant mob completely shattered. We actually removed these white lines from play, which is definitely pretty nifty. But unfortunately, Field Trebuchet here offline. This Field Trebuchet completely unmanned. And now it's really up to the archers to try to break up these Keepers of the Flame. And you can see they're just pouring some withering fire in there, but they're almost out of ammo. And once those archers are, things are going to be over. And you can see we get a nice meaty flank charge here with our cavalry. Our Grail Knights just riding rough and dirty through these guys. And I thought for a second that we're just going to break them. We're just going to remove them from play. Balance of power, though, decisively in my opponent's favor at this point. And we don't manage to break them immediately. So that is actually really bad because every time these guys swing, they're doing immense amounts of damage to my Grail Knights. They also have magic damage, so they're bypassing that physical resist, doing a lot of hurt. Unfortunately, the Phoenix Guard here is coming in. They got 41 models, 2,500 HP. And right now, this Phoenix Guard, if they're able to stick around, could single-handedly basically win this game. And so we're just pouring our archery fire onto them. I'm trying to pull my archers away from L'Oreal here. These guys are out of ammo, so we're actually going to throw them into the fray just to bog these guys down in the fight. And L'Oreal here just escapes our knights, and there's not much we can do to stop her. She's just too quick on her pigeon. Earthblood goes down, and once again, those heals. This is brutal. Right now, if I had my Fan Enchantress still on the field, I could be healing my boys. I could have healed these guys a whole bunch and be in a much better spot, but I can't. So, unfortunately, she's able to just drop spell after spell after spell. It actually gets Shield of Thorns in there, so things are looking even worse. We are managing to remove some of the peripheral troops, which is a little bit of a win. These white lines here get removed. But L'Oreal in good shape, 2,300 HP. The Phoenix Guard, 2,300 as well. But one of the cool things is our Field Trebuchet didn't flee, so it's actually coming back. Maybe those chevrons actually kicking in and doing something for once. Our Knights here cycle charging the Phoenix Guard because I, at this point, was just desperate. Needed to do some damage somewhere. Our archers focusing down L'Oreal. So I figured she's a big target. Our Knights diving in there, not just dying horribly. These guys down to 9 models. The Grail Knights here down to 7. We do have some men-at-arms here pursuing troops off the field, so potentially if we could get them back in, that could be a big win. But unfortunately, these Grail Knights now down to 6 models, getting destroyed. 5, and they are out. So that is a bit of a disaster. Archers, though, continue firing in on L'Oreal, and of course, being expendable, they don't get affected by the Knights routing. So L'Oreal here drops to 1,300 HP, and fortunately, our Knights are going to catch or arrest their flight, largely because of the sacrifice of those men-at-arms who dove in there. The Knights are going to stop their route. And now the Phoenix Guard is pushing in to clean up the archers, and this was a bit of a mistake on Triage's part, because he's going to split L'Oreal off, looking to shut down these catapults, knowing that they're such a big threat. But L'Oreal here is going to dive in, and she's going to get surrounded. Excuse me. So these Grail Knights are in on her. They're getting in. The Knights of the Lionheart dive in with their charge. She does pop an Earthblood, but despite her very high melee stats, she's getting surrounded. She's getting swarmed. Earthblood is not going to last forever, and look at how fast the Pigeon Lady is just getting tanked. You can see these guys down to 9 models. Grail Knight's down to 1. These guys are just an absolute hero of the people. 76 skills, 2 chevrons gained over the course of this match. Insane stuff. And L'Oreal is getting torn to shreds. Her leadership tanks. It breaks, buckles, and she routs. And that is a huge win for us. Suddenly, we've managed to remove L'Oreal from play. Finally, she's gone. Getting snared up a little bit on the Trebuchet. They're down 67 HP. She's running for dear life. And we're pursuing her as best we can. You can't see the Knights there just desperately sticking on her. These guys are exhausted, but our Grail Knights here are still fresh as always. Minty fresh, and they managed to take her down. So L'Oreal is gone. And suddenly things are looking way better for me. Now, granted, I have no real way to apply missile pressure, but we do manage to remand the trebuchets. We're rallying our men, our amazing peasant bows, our men-at-arms are coming back in, and now these guys no longer have heals. So even if I dismount, so what I'm going to do here is dismount this trebuchet and swing over to this one, because you can remand the same pieces. Now, if it's a regiment of renown, keep in mind that, for example, a Hammer of Witches can't man normal cannons, but for everybody else, you can do that. So here we are going to look to hammer and anvil these Phoenix Guard. And you can see they do take a tiny bit of damage there from the bows. Up to 180 or so kills. They've just had a monstrous time of it. This Grail Knight here, champion of the people, dives in, does a little bit of damage, and he takes the Phoenix Guard with him, and then does topple to the earth. So this noble knight here, he's going to be written to all the ballads. He slew the Fey Witch and destroyed the Star Dragon and all that stuff. So he's an absolute champion of the people. These Phoenix Guard now getting pincered, still on 50 leadership despite L'Oreal being gone. But with the rear charge, with the surround, and now Trebuchet's coming back online, they're going to be stuck in here in this bad fight. The Knights of the Lionheart get a nice charge in there, and the leadership buckles. And Phoenix Guard is going to break here, granting a win to Brettonia. So a Pyrrhic victory for the Brettonians in a really close fight. Now I wanted to point out some things. Triage made some really good use of terrain there, making sure to block out my surround with the ditch in the ground, which is really, really useful. Also, it's important that even if you feel like you're winning, be very wary of throwing your lord away. There, my Fey Enchantress got in a fight against a unit that she's pretty resistant to with her 60% magic resist, but I let her get sort of fear, surrounded, and terror to kick in, and that snowballed into broken effect. And once she was broken, especially because the map's so small, but even if the map wasn't small, sure, I could have chased her off easily. And once that happened, the match almost swung back in its favor, and that was just a basically disaster in the making, and we barely managed to pull it back, so definitely a very close fight. As for the build here, the field trebuchets did rather well. I'm not entirely sure if I think they're worth it. It's a bit tough. This isn't necessarily the cheapest investment. Keep in mind, this is about a 700 or so, 750 gold investment, these trebuchets. Maybe even 800 gold. So they're not the cheapest thing. They did do a lot of damage to the Phoenix Guard. These kills, 54 and 33, are almost all against Phoenix Guard, so that was pretty huge. But at the same time, I think if this build was, say, a little wider, if there were silver helms there, these guys would have gotten compromised much more. I think, and obviously if there weren't any Phoenix Guard in there, their opportunities to do good damage would have been much more limited. Because obviously against dragons, frost or phoenixes and that sort of thing, trebuchets don't do anything basically. And white lions, they're kind of squandered on that. Otherwise, the men-at-arms front line kind of buckled, and this is why I really like the Grail Guardians. They will never break, essentially. Grail Guardians, in this situation that happened here, where my entire line starts buckling, and everything fell apart, and I was forced to throw my knights into the fray, Grail Guardians would hold their ground, and I would be able to rely on them as an anchor. Even if it was a little island in a sea of angry elves, it would be something you could count on. Whereas with the men-at-arms, you can't count on them to hold anything. They're going to flop. As for Triari's build, I do think it's pretty cool. Definitely interesting to see all melee. I do like the idea of sort of boxing up on top of Phoenix Guard and just using your Frostheart Phoenix and Star Dragon to, like, in a sort of Kolek-ish manner. I do think one of the problems could be if your opponent decides to go with, say, Pegasus Knights. It's not the most common thing, but you will sometimes see Royal Pegasus Knights or Royal Hippogriffs in this match. In that case, this match, I think it might be good to get at least Tempest on Alariel. If you're not going to bring any range, which obviously it's difficult if you're investing so much into expensive ground units on top of that. But I do think that that could be useful, just having Tempest on Alariel as a bit of support. Otherwise, it's not really a build I've really experimented with, so I feel like I'm not able. It worked pretty well here. I do think some of it came down to my misplay, but some of it was all, but also some of the match did also come down. For example, Alariel losing out to those knights was a little bit of bad luck on Triari's part, or misplay. So there was definitely some back and forth there. I think the build is pretty interesting and pretty solid, surprisingly. It's something I like. It's a build I don't really see very often, which is well, I think it's cool to see. I thought it was a pretty interesting take on the matchup and definitely seemed to work pretty well. One other thing I would note, though, I would probably not bother with immunity. There's an item Alariel has that grants immunity psychology and magic damage. One thing you want to be very wary of. Now, this is a very potent item in helping deal with Grail mobs. But one thing you want to be very wary of, and I'm not sure if Trey knew this or not, is if you're fighting the Fey Enchantress, she has ridiculous magic resistance. So if a fight comes down to you need to snipe the Fey Enchantress, you need to move Alariel away from the fight. She needs to be at least 40 meters away from whatever units are fighting Alariel so that they can get their full damage in. Because, for example, I've had matches where I had Alariel plus the nobles, and, say, Dragon Princes. And while I was doing well against the Grail Knights, once I needed to deal with the Fey Enchantress, it was crucial to pull away Alariel. So, just a little tidbit there. It might be something Terraria knows, but even for those of you guys who might be thinking about experimenting with this build or running something similar, just keep that in mind with Alariel. Either way, well played to Terraria here. It was a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, don't hesitate to put them down below, and I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.